who
Yes, absolutely.
has got Natasha Mazzoni with her of the DA. Hey there, Lindsay.
Yes, I do, Sally. Natasha Mazzoni of the DA. Natasha, straight to it. Anything that inspired you from the President's speech this evening?
Lindsay, here's the thing. If what he said actually came true, it would be a great inspirational speech. But again, we've heard about these promises and promises and promises, but yet no delivery. I mean, tonight we heard that we have a shortfall in electricity and there's a plan to increase the electricity. That's been said for the last 3 years. Schooling, we've been told more schools are going to be open. We've been told that for the last 5 years. We've been told that the Zondo Commission has given us such great information. Has anyone been arrested? Despite the fact that it's indisputable evidence. How is it possible that people like Brian Malefi and Mashele Koko are walking the streets and Malusi Igaba? So here's the thing. If the President really, what I really like is when he says, let's work together. That inspires me. And then I try. We go to him, we give him our plans, we say, let's sit down, let's talk. And it never happens. And Lindsay, my only hope for this country is if the President actually does it and he says, we are all South Africans, let's sit around a table and let's talk. We almost fell off a fiscal cliff and we managed to deploy the parachute. So we had a rather soft landing, but we don't know how many times we can do that soft landing. And it is going to take every single one of us to get this country working. So the President actually has no choice. If he doesn't start sitting around a table and listening to plans, it's not going to work. What did inspire me was a lot of the plans, his economic plans that he was talking about, came directly from the DA's Blue Book, which I thought was really good. It means he's looked at our plans, he's read our plans, he knows that they've been costed, he knows that they've been researched. So it does mean that the President has read our documentation, and that did give me some hope. But now the question is, will you allow us to help you realize the dreams that you want to see?
Natasha, just quickly, state of disaster, the President not quite there, but signalling the intention to lift the state of disaster, which is what the DA was calling for?
The state of disaster should have been lifted 6 months ago. We've had a de facto Prime Minister running this country in the form of NDZ for far too long. I think if the President is serious about getting this country running properly after the pandemic, tomorrow morning he should declare that the state of disaster is finished.
Thank you very much. That's Natasha Mazzoni from the DA, the Chief Whip. Over to you, Sippa.
Thanks.
Well, we have some reaction now from leaders of opposition political parties, and one of those is Dr. Groenewald from the Freedom Front Plus. Your reaction, what do you make of the State of the Nation address?
Well, firstly, I want to say, as always, the President is very good at analyzing the problems in South Africa. But the question still remains, what is he going to do about it? He is, again, referring to task teams, investigate, and coming forward with a plan, but he hasn't got structural, workable solutions. For instance, for the first time, he now said that it is the private sector that is supposed to create jobs and not the government. We have said that for many years in the Freedom Front Plus. But again, he will establish a task team to see how it's going to be implemented. It's not necessary. Just allow the private sector to do their job and create certain circumstances is conducive for them to do business by, for instance, amending labor legislation.
Okay, thank you very much for your time, Dr. Groenewald. Shahan, you'll have to take it, my brother, because I say you've got some reaction too.
All right, thanks for that, Sipamandla. Let's get reaction from the IFP's Naren Singh. Mr. Singh, of course, a very long speech from the President today. I know there's a lot to say, but I want to ask you in particular about what he says about security agencies, changes in leadership, and whether you think he's done enough after the July unrest report.
Certainly not. Good evening, Shahan, to you and your viewers. Certainly not. And I mean, for the report and for him to admit that Cabinet should take full responsibility for acts of omission or commission during the unrest is quite a big, bold step. Now, we want to see action. And you were reporting during the unrest when millions of rands of damage were caused and over 300 people died, when we said quite categorically that government was at fault and that the security ministries were not doing their work, and the chickens have now come home to roost. We cannot afford that kind of thing to happen again, and if the President does not take action, then I think he would have failed, and not only his political party, but failed the country as a whole.
All right, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. We can go now live to Lindsay Dentlinger with the Good Party.
on how to split.
Brett Heron from the Good Party, just sworn in on Tuesday for your party, so all fairly new to you this evening, but I'm sure you can tell us what your party finds inspiring from the President's speech this evening.
So, I mean, we came here wanting to hear about jobs. Unemployment is our greatest crisis, and we needed to hear about jobs. The President spoke extensively about jobs, but I think what we needed to hear was some measurable targets and when they would be achieved. The anemic economic growth projections that we have of 1% per annum for the next 2 or 3 financial years will never generate the kind of job numbers that he's talking about. So we needed measurable targets on jobs and when they would be achieved. We wanted to hear about the prosecution of state capture criminals, and it was encouraging to hear that there is the commitment to pursue the outcome of the Zondo Commission, but we remain concerned that the National Prosecuting Authority is under-resourced and whether they'll have the capacity to actually prosecute in a meaningful time where South Africans can gain confidence in the justice system. We wanted to hear about a basic income grant. We welcome the extension of the social distress relief grant, but it's time for us really to put the debate around the basic income grant or basic income guarantee to bed and to actually commit to implementing it as a permanent social security that South Africans are entitled to in terms of Section 27 of the Constitution. And then finally, we wanted to hear a solution to electricity. The President gave a lot of detail about additional generation capacity, which is very, very welcome. Some of it, the time periods may be too long if we are to achieve the economic growth and the job creation growth that he spoke about. But the 4 things that we thought the foundations of making progress in South Africa: jobs, social security, electricity, and a justice system that we can trust. He touched on them all. There was some absence of detail, but overall we are very happy that those 4 elements were front of mind for him.
Thank you very much. Brett Heron from the Good Party, just recently sworn in as an MP, and over to you, Siphamandla. Huh?
Well, we've got the chairperson of the governing African National Congress. His name is Gwede Samson Mantashe, to react on the State of the Nation address. He's the chairperson of the ANC and Minister for Minerals and Energy. Thank you very much for your time, your reaction. Your president keeps on saying, we must, we will, we must, we commit to do this. No concrete implementation plan. What?
The leader of any institution will outline the vision. It is the duty of the ministers to develop execution plans. So the vision is clear. It's a function of engagement over a long period of time. That's why if you see, look into the details, all those details refer to issues that have been discussed. I can break that sauna into 3. It's mainly the management of the COVID-19, is the economy and security. Those 3 issues are quite clear in the State of the Nation address. It is up to ministers to execute the plan.
Thank you very much for your time. Gwede Mantashe, the national chairperson of the African National Congress. Shahan has got John Steenhuisen with him.
It's very interesting because I was talking to John Steenhuisen just off camera, and you were quite impressed with what the president had to say about the economy.
Yeah, very impressed. Straight out of the DA playbook. And finally, you got ahead of the ANC and the president of the country agreeing that the statist approach doesn't create jobs or grow the economy, that you need to create the environment for the private sector. That's what we've been saying for years. Going out the DA playbook, cutting red tape, creating opportunities for investment. The big thing to now take away, the president putting individuals from outside of his party into his office to do the things that his ministers should be doing. It should be the Minister of Small Business cutting red tape. He's brought somebody else in. It should be somebody else, Minister of Finance and others raising the funds, brought somebody else in. The president obviously clearly doesn't trust members in his own cabinet to implement his plans that he has for the year ahead. And I think that should worry you. The big omission tonight for me, education. How do we catch up the 50% of schooling that's been lost over the last 2 years, so that we can ensure we don't have another lost generation of South Africans who don't have the skills to be able to get into the programs that the president's talking about by finishing their schooling.
Lastly, quickly, corruption. He's talking about specialized courts to deal with state capture report, people who are implicated, etc. More police on the ground for state security. Is all of that satisfactory?
Well, you can make all the announcements. Again, it comes down to the leadership. You've got a police minister who's at war with the National Police Commissioner, and while they're fighting, crime is increasing. You've got an NPA that's working at a glacial pace. We're yet to see any prior profile investigations years on now from the state capture revelations. I think they've got to move a lot faster. The president's going to have to put a lot more effort into making sure the NPA is fit for purpose, but also creating a standalone corruption prosecution agency like we had before in the form of the Scorpions. They had an over 90% conviction rate. I think we need those specialised services back into the government sections and to be able to do what needs to be done.
All right, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. John Stearney is the leader of the Democratic Alliance. Let's go to Sipamandla now.
I'm with Reverend Kenneth Meshwe, the leader of the ACDP. Thank you very much for your time, Rev. Are you inspired by the State of the Nation address by the President?
Not really. There are a number of promises that they've been making over the years that he repeated tonight, such as we will intensify our fight against gender-based violence. Every year they say that, and there is no change with that. But secondly, something that maybe we must give him credit for, he saw his mistake, the mistake of his party, the ANC, that he did not acknowledge. For the first time today he said, we know that it is not government that should create jobs, but it is the private sector. It is the first time he says that. He should have said we were wrong, or we have learned from minority parties that have been saying that all the time, that it is not government's responsibility to create jobs, but it is business, it is the private sector. So that is a positive that he should have acknowledged. They made a mistake that they have corrected. But on the issue of the report from the panel of experts, obviously we are disappointed in the sense that they are not taking decisive action against people who are responsible for security and who did nothing. People lost jobs, people lost their assets, people lost lives, but he does not talk about taking action against the people who did that.
Thank you very much for your time, Reverend Kenneth Meshwe. Shahana.